Well, good afternoon. It's August the 21st today. Always got to look at the calendar. And it's about quarter to 3 in the afternoon. We had a little rain this morning. That's about needed pretty bad. We haven't had rain for 6 months. And it's sure showing up with the fires. Oh my gosh. Edward Cove's been evacuated 2 times. We're going to hang a big banner on the billboard up in the highway on Monday, thanking all the firefighters. I think that's most likely a good idea. Yeah, I'm going to get some big equipment back in on Monday again. Had to take that out last Saturday or Friday night or whatever it was in the dark. I got worried about it. And it's a $350,000 machine, so get worried. Well, today's Saturday, the Sabbath day. I mean, I still try to keep the Sabbath. I don't know how good I'm doing it, but I've been listening to some people that say, oh, Sabbath is nothing. It used to be, it's not anymore. It's not a thing. I don't know. I have a hard time swallowing that. Lots of places it says that God says I don't change. Same today, tomorrow, forever.
To play Susan Says on this group of speakers, you need to upgrade your Amazon Music Unlimited subscription. By upgrading, you can play over tens of millions of songs across your multiple
My
Echo
Alexa
devices
is going again. Alexa, stop. Alexa, stop. I'll have to shut her up, I guess. I guess I'm going to have to stop. Alexa, stop. Alexa, stop. Gotta talk sharply to her. Well, that's the way it is when you live in a house with a mechanical woman. Can't believe it. Gotten to that. But anyway, get back to the firefighters and all this stuff and the fires. I think there was 60, 70 homes that were burnt out on the west side of the lake here. And the smoke we had, I can't even describe it. It was like midnight at 6 o'clock at night. Couldn't even see it. It wasn't that gray looking smoke. It was blackish brown rolling. Oh man, it was terrible. It was terrible. I never seen anything like it. No, yeah, dropsy. The when we had the whole trouble has been heat and drought. That's what's caused all this. Because that's so dry, you could rub 2 sticks together and start a fire. 108 degrees for days, 104. You'd go outside or something, just hit with a wall of heat, just hot. My car would be on the outside of the car. I'd come along, and the car was hot on the outside. Hadn't been anywhere. Yeah, and the thing is, this is not local. This is just, this is not here, just Vernon. It's all over the place. This is a bad one we had here. But not just here. It's in Australia. It's in Europe. Greece is burning. Turkey's on fire. I forget what other ones. Big fires going on all over the place, and it's all due to this heat. So What do we say about that? You know, do we say this is the start? This is the start of things? I don't know. I really don't know. But it certainly makes me think when you got a pandemic and a heat wave and fires. That's just three things. And a pandemic that keeps coming back, and I mean, what's next? Floods, hurricanes, earthquakes, which can be. You know, if God has anything to do with this, and if this is the time He's speaking of, the end days, the last days when they start, you know what it reminds me of the guy who said, "How did you lose your business? You had a big business," and he said, "Well, he said it started very slowly, and then it went fast." Now, is that the way this is going to happen? It's going to start slowly and then speed up a bit and then really go. Could be. I mean, that's just guessing. What the heck? There's nothing to back that up. But I don't know. It's what I think about more is not just fires and earthquakes and weather, which is the main tools God uses to deal with things. He doesn't use armies or nuclear bombs or anything. He uses natural occurring events. That can be anything from, he's used, at one time he used burning sulfur, rain down with burning sulfur. Now, where did that come from? Got an arsenal of that too. Hail, 50-pound blocks of hail coming down, enough to smash and kill anything. And he's flooded the world once. Maybe it's been flooded before, but as far as I know, it's flooded. And said it's flooded. I have a little problem with that, and I know I shouldn't have because it's not right for me to have that. But a little doubt that it was a total world flood because of just, I don't know. I believe there was a flood, but I think it was more of a local flood. And the reason that I'm hesitant to believe that is that the Chinese have been here for 13,000 years. This flood took place about 6,000 years or 5,000 years ago or something. If that's the case, why weren't all the why weren't all the animals killed in North America, the buffalo and whatever, mammoth? I don't know. I have a little trouble with that, and I know that's a drawback in my belief system because I should believe exactly what it says, but I am believing what it says. It says there was a flood. I don't see where it said it was a worldwide total flood that covered Mount Everest. But I could think of a flood in the low desert areas in the Middle East. It most likely wouldn't take too much, maybe 50, 80 feet of water or something to cover just about the whole country. And of course, the other thing that I have a problem with, and I've mentioned this to some preachers too, none of them want to agree with it. And I say, how can you tell me that the 6-day creation, which God created 6 days, and on the 6th day He created the male and female. Yeah. And then He rested on the seventh day. Now, what's that? That's not one 24-hour period. I'm sure of that. It's got to be at least 1,000 years, because he says the day to God is like 1,000 years. 1,000 years is like a day. Doesn't say it's exactly 1,000. Could be more, could be less. I don't know. And then he created Adam. That's two different creations. There's no way about that. He created a male and female. And he told them to have the fish of the sea and all that stuff. And obviously, that's when the different races were created. All the red man and the yellow man and the white man, I guess, and whatever. That's, I mean, I'm just reading what it says, not putting my spin on it at all. It just says that's what it did on the sixth day, and then he rested, and then he created Adam. Because the Bible is basically a story about Adam. It's his story, history. The family of Adam. That's really what the Bible's all about. Not about general things or not. It's about Adam. It's a story of the whole thing. And it's a glimpse and a story of God's plan. And, you know, God had all of the time and eternity to come up with this plan. Who knows how long he worked or had on this plan? No idea. And you have to admit, must be a plan, because the Bible says that the Lamb of God was slain before the foundation of the world. So that's before there was any world or whatever. So that plan was agreed on then, ahead of time. And then there's all this stuff about people being pre-selected or what the heck do they call it? Predestined. God knew who they were going to be, and what they were going to do, and who's going to be the ones that are going to be in his kingdom, and who's not. All these armies and kings and queens and all this stuff. You know, it's a big story, because the thing that has impressed me a lot is that the transparency kind of, or the not the transparency, the idea that nothing is ever the same. Like from one minute to the next, it's different. That's never coming back. Just like I'm talking to you now, will never ever happen in the history of the universe. Never. Just now. Right now. And that's the way God has built into everything. This planet has a time schedule or a lifespan, and you know, maybe the stars and moon and satellites and whatever, all these orbiting worlds, millions and billions of them. You know, I mean, we have no idea how great God is. I mean, just read Revelation, what is it, 20, about the city of God that is going to come down. And the dimensions. Just the dimensions, you know. It's not man's dimensions at all. They're God-sized dimensions. 1,500 miles on each side, and 1,500 miles high. Well, we can't build anything like that. Well, we couldn't as long as there's gravity, we couldn't anyway. But I guess when that happens, there's not going to be any more gravity because maybe there's no more physical people. Everything is spiritual. So there's no, I don't know, no weight or no. And yet I imagine it's more real than it is now. And, of all the things to think about is, I mean, you could think about it. Like, what, if you are in the first resurrection, you got it made. Because you are going to be saved. You're going to be ruling this planet with Jesus Christ. And then that city of God will come down 1,000 years later. But, it's not a question of laying around in a retirement community like we do now. It won't be anything like that. People will be totally healthy. There'll be no sickness, nothing to stop you from doing anything as much as you want. There's no night. It's always daylight. It's always day. So I guess nobody ever sleeps. I guess. I don't know. But they are able to do this, that, whatever. So that there's a lot of activity most likely going on. And there's most likely no end to it. And the first 1,000 years with Christ, there will be lots of people busy doing things. It's amazing that God has chosen this planet out of all the universe as his home, his base. But I read a bit where they claim that if you really study the layout of the planets and all that sort of stuff, that the Earth is in a position of sort of like a window. It has a window. The Earth has a window out on the whole universe. Now, maybe that's the reason that God is using the Earth. That's his home base. Now, it's funny. I mean, the Earth isn't that big in comparison to other planets. I mean, they're much, much bigger. But the Earth has got a lot going for it. Mind you, I don't really have to be explained to me how this planet, how the sea will be gone. No more sea. When I go out when I've been out on the ocean, maybe I'm going again, and I look at the water and how much water that is. Where did all this water come from? I mean, where did it come from? God must have created it because it's in a closed cycle. You never lose a drop. There's just as much water here as when God created it. All we do is recycle it over and over and over and over. Never lose it. Evaporation goes up, it comes down again. It can only go up so much until it condenses and comes down. There's no way for it to leak, or it doesn't get used up. It gets recycled and recycled and recycled. When you think about it, all these toilets and back houses and bathrooms and whatever going for thousands of years has been recycling stuff back into the ground, into an aquifer, going through all the filtering, and we can't live without water. The planet can't live without water. Nothing grows without water. Humans can't live without water. They're made of 60-70% water. And I think animals are pretty close, the same. maybe not quite as much. They might have more muscle, but fish, oh, millions and billions of fish. It's a big food source. It's if this is the start of the end days, or winding down, I could see that in a way because I think first of all we deteriorate from the inside, like our society collapses. It collapses from the inside more more than any outside force or army or and we are disintegrating from the inside. You can argue all you want about it, but when you start to kill your own people and your own children and your own progeny, and you think that's right, and you know that it is satanic actually, because it's absolutely against. And then you have now people who want to decide whether they're male or female, and if they don't like what the way they're born, they want to be another way. That doesn't fly very good either. And I mean, in the long run, it doesn't work. You can't build a society like for the next 50 years, 100 years out on that. And when you're killing your own children, you certainly aren't going to keep up your own society. You're going to die out, and we're getting close to that now. The white race is just terrible for that. And the white race is basically Israelite. I mean, the 10 tribes of Israel, disappeared into the Urals and the Caucasian mountains and traveled all the way through Eastern Europe and then into British Isles and Scandinavia and Germany and France and whatever. And by that time, they were a big bunch of people. Huge bunch, millions. And if that's who traveled all the way through, and they all ended up white race people, they must have come from the 10 tribes, 12 tribes of Israel. The Jews didn't travel that much as the rest. They traveled, but they got taken out of Israel once, and then they went back again. They were there, and they were the ones who actually basically stayed there. But the 10 tribes, the 10 northern tribes disappeared or never came back until the 2,550 or 20 years was up, and God extended their promise that He made to Abraham because of their rebellion. But when that was up in late 1700s or whatever it was like right to the day, and it just started like they woke up right now, and their promises were going to come through. And the main one was the promise of wealth and property. And I mean, it all happened very fast. The Industrial Revolution get going right away, and the next thing you know, they're building stuff. And the next thing you know, they're building a railroad and ships and steam engines, and that was never done before. And once they did that, they started getting to be too many in one place, and they wanted out of there. And when they found out about the new world, Columbus and Eric the Red and all that stuff, that there was a new land there that they could go to, and when you think about it, especially North America, it had roving tribes of Indians, for thousands of years. They just roamed around. They didn't do anything except hunt and fish and roam around on a huge land, and the best land. And why? You got to tell me why, or ask yourself why. If this is not true, because they ended up, the white race ended up with the best land on the planet. And all the riches come from the land of origin. That's where they all come from. Well, you're in a rich land. And you know a rich land if you actually get out and look at a rich land. You know, I've been a few places. You know, Spain had a lot of good land and mostly olive trees. You know, big swaths of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of acres. But when I drive through a place like Alberta in July, and I look at the crops and all the stuff there. For instance, I went back here a couple of years ago, and I drove out to the farm where I was living, and not the farm I was born on, but next, close by. And I drove down the same road from Hay Lake south, you know, go east and 6 miles, 5 miles east and 1 mile north. And I drove by the same fields that I used to drive by when I was 10, 12, 15 years old. And they were crops there, you know, 4 feet high, green crop, barley, wheat, oats, whatever. And I drove by there again 60 years later. And I just picked like one area to look at. I drove by, looked at it, and here's the field just solid 4 feet high green barley. And I thought, now, isn't this something? That is a production deal. 60 years as that has been going on that field every year. The same thing, growing, 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 growing. And I thought, oh. Then I was in Edmonton, stayed in Edmonton for a few days with a cousin of mine. And I wanted to go up to St. Paul, Alberta to meet another cousin. And her husband had died, and she lived in St. Paul, and she had 10 children. One had died. He was 63. She's like 79, 80. I don't know. She's just as sharp and as, you know, as ever. I mean, I couldn't believe it. And anyway, on the way out there, that's like, you know, that's about what? Maybe 100 and some miles, I don't know, from Edmonton to St. Paul. But I had never been out there that I can remember. And I was amazed at the one after another of these big farms, you know, granaries, whole piles of them, and every one of them, big farm buildings and whatever. And I just kept driving mile after mile after mile, look to the left, look to the right. And this is only 100 miles out of Edmonton. And if I go south of Edmonton, it's the same thing. If I go east of Edmonton, it's even more. I mean, it's really parkland, farmland. And, you know, if it's anything like the farm we had black dirt 3 feet deep. Oh, that's that kind of land. Yeah, I mean, that's just amazing land. You know, you go to the States, and the States is big percentage of the States is desert. Western states, all those things, a lot of desert. High desert. You know, just there's not really desert, but it's high desert. It's, you know, kind of little sagebrush and high, rocky, and big rocks on it. And I guess you have to go way east to get into the farmland in the United States, because they do have a lot of it. But in Western Canada, has got land that's just unbeatable. Unbeatable. And there's other. Australia has big, big wheat farms and stuff in Australia. The United States has, Canada has, and phew, the wealth that has come from that. Now, I know I said and it really makes me think that God had this land held in perpetuity for the 10 tribes or the 12 tribes of Israel, because that's what we promised land. And then he all the way around. He took them all through Europe and whatever, through the Caucasian mountains, and that's why we're called Caucasian. And into Norway, Sweden, mostly Sweden, I think, and maybe Norway a bit, and then into Ireland, Scotland, and England, and Germany, and France, and Belgium, and whatever. You know, it's funny, they claim that when the big immigration started and they started immigrating to Canada and the United States, and they said that there was 4 million out of Germany. 4 million people. And they said the difference was they were all Nordic skulls, every single one. God had said, I will sift them out, and I won't lose one. That's quite the thing, isn't it? Now, Germans are not basically Nordic skulls. The Germans, in the actual run of it, are basically Assyrian from the way back. Not Syrian, but Assyrian. And they were warlike, you know, and they had more round skulls, faces. Nordic skulls are oblong, you know. You can look at my face, you can see that. And just things like that. That's one of the reasons I paid attention to Herbert W. Armstrong, not so much for anything else, but because of his one book, United States of Britain in Prophecy, and how he researched this whole deal and maps and all kinds of things of the migration of the 10 tribes of Israel and where they went and where they ended up, and supposed to be all the, you know, they could tell by their places that they lived. They could tell by their artifacts and stuff. And they claimed that they were also real horsemen. They went the Urals. They were great horsemen and stuff like this. And the thing is, like God has said, that they will forget, the 10 tribes of Israel will forget who they are. Totally forget who they are. They won't know. And just one generation after another, they'll all turn into Swedes and Englishmen and Irishmen and Germans and forget they were Israelites. You know, like when the Assyrians took over the northern 10 tribes of Israel, they took them over. And God actually told them that they were going to be taken over, they're going to lose their land because they rebelled against him. And people maybe don't realize, but there was a lot of them. I think they say there was about 6 million. So it didn't start with just a few, it started with quite a few. And he said they'll be like the sand of the sea. Well, you start to count all white race in the world, there you go, quite a few. All of Europe, Australia, North America, England, France. There's a lot. Mind you, there's a lot of others too, but so here we are, August the 21st. August. Summer is maybe 20 days away. Fall is about 20 days away. Huh. And I've got to figure out if I'm going to be able to go on this cruise or not. I just don't know. I don't know if it's going to work out again. It's been canceled once before. Maybe it has to be canceled again. I don't know. Anyway, let's hope that the fires cut down and we get enough rain to stop this and things get more back to normal for a while. Anyway, hopefully it would be nice. Anyway, God bless and talk to you again.